Hello, welcome back. A quick chat about perfectionism today. You have asked, so I'm here, and there's a lot I want to talk about when it comes to perfectionism because I'm a perfectionist myself and I have been on a very complicated perfectionism journey with my English, and it's important that we kind of address this trait because a lot of you feel the same and you might be feeling stuck like I did. So I'm going to talk about perfectionism briefly, and then at the end of this video I am going to mention something that is actually worse than being a perfectionist. I'm going to find out what it is in a minute. Alright, so I'm a perfectionist. Here I said it. There you go. I'm a perfectionist. And I am so much better now. Way better. Me at 34, it's actually good. I'm doing really well in terms of perfectionism. When I moved to England at 15, it was like possibly one of the peaks of my perfectionism, which was not very good because being a perfectionist when I moved to England meant, with no English, meant that I didn't speak for ages. So I didn't really start speaking for a very long time. Very long time or years? No, but much longer than people who are not perfectionists, like my brothers. So they were speaking a lot sooner, making friends and communicating at school and doing things a lot sooner than I was, because I was just so afraid to say something wrong and to sound like an idiot and to have people make fun of me that I decided to not speak. So this was a big problem for my English because it stopped me from starting to develop. At the same time, which again, massive contradiction, and you're going to have to see this in whichever way you feel makes more sense to you. But on the other hand, because I was so afraid of making mistakes, I was actually listening a lot. I was paying attention to native speakers. So when I did, so this is a very good thing actually, when I did start speaking, I was already sounding reasonably okay, because I was not only afraid, but I was actually paying attention in order to be able to speak well in the future. So this was very good. What I notice sometimes with people who are not perfectionists is that they have a very I don't care kind of attitude towards speaking English, which means they will just start speaking and they literally don't care whether it's right or wrong, whether they sound good or not so good, whether people understand them or not, whether they're pronouncing it right or not. And that is a problem because then having this kind of careless attitude stops you from learning in a better way and from developing your English in a way that gives you better results. Not everyone's going to have the same results, and there's a reason for that. So after this period where I was very quiet, I started to be a little bit overconfident, so too confident. And I started to believe that I knew exactly what I was talking about. And because I had listened so carefully for so long, I must be getting this right. I must be right. And that was a big kind of flop moment for me, because that was when I was younger as well, obviously. I wasn't 30 years old with this attitude. I was much younger. I was about 20. This was a problem because I started to make mistakes that actually did get me in bad situations-ish, but they did affect my confidence in a very negative way, because I had put myself in this position where I believed that I knew what I was talking about. So when like the truth hit and I was faced with things that showed me I didn't know that much, I then had to take a step back and look at my English and be very honest with myself. And that made me feel very, very insecure, and thus made me stop speaking again. So I had 2 periods where I spoke very little. At the very beginning when I couldn't speak, and after I started to feel a little bit overconfident. That was not good. So I think one of the most important things we have to think about as perfectionists is there's always room for improvement. This means you're always going to have something about your English that you can improve on. And knowing that gives you this kind of thrill, you know, like excitement for learning, which I find so important because you don't want this to be a boring thing, and also kind of keeps you on your toes. This makes you stay grounded, right? You understand you don't know everything, you're not as good as you think, right? So this is something that I learned to say to myself. And so this is so complex because the point of having this kind of view, you know, opinion about learning is not to make you feel insecure and for you to look down on yourself. No, it's for you to just accept that there's always going to be things for you to learn. There's always going to be an opportunity for you to improve because it's not your language. And even with your own language, I'm sure there's a lot you could learn. The thing is, we don't actually care about our first language. We don't give it. We really don't care. But with English or whatever language we speak that is not our mother tongue, we tend to feel like we tend to be really hard on ourselves, you know. So it's not about feeling insecure, but it is about knowing that there's always going to be stuff for you to learn and feeling the thrill that you're supposed to feel from learning. Now, we got to the end of the video, and that's where I want to mention something that I believe is worse than being a perfectionist. The worst thing you can be in your English hike is arrogant. Arrogance is the worst thing that you could possibly bring into your English hike, your English journey. It's the worst thing, and I'll tell you why. Because when you're arrogant about it, you don't think there's stuff that you can learn. Number one, you don't think there's anything you can learn. You actually think that you know it all. I'm great, I'm brilliant, amazing. Oopsie. And secondly, you don't accept being wrong. This is so dangerous. And this happened to me on Instagram about 3 months ago. This happened to me on Instagram. One of my followers messaged me commenting on something that I'd written, and she said that it was wrong. And I explained to her that it wasn't. And she said to me, yeah, whatever, I'm going to ask my daughter to ask her teacher at school. I think she lives in England. And then we'll see. She said something like that, and then we'll see. And I was like, am I wrong? Because nowadays I have a very good attitude towards my learning. Not only my teaching, but my learning, most importantly, which is when people ask me or they tell me I'm wrong, I actually go, oh shoot, am I? Let me look into that. Let me find out. And that's the best attitude you can have, you know. So the first thing I did when she messaged me was, oh no, am I wrong? You know, like, and then I answered with my point of view, explaining why I did not believe I was wrong. And then she was super arrogant back to me. And what I did was, let me ask some native speakers that I know, right? So I did. I asked 2 different people, one from England, one from Australia. And they both told me that I was right. And then I took a print screen of my conversation with those 2 people and I sent it to her saying, look, I asked 2 native speakers and this is what they said. And still she was really, really sure that I was wrong. I'm like, I asked 2 native speakers, man. Like, you know. So this kind of attitude is not a good idea because it doesn't take you anywhere. It doesn't help. You know, you're just too arrogant to think that you could have been wrong. You don't want to learn. You stop yourself from learning. And that can be a big problem. When you stop yourself from learning, you don't actually develop. So be careful with arrogance, you know. Being in both positions, being in the position of someone who is blaming somebody for being wrong and then being like, you're wrong, and that's the end of it when A, you're not a native speaker, B, the same as me saying to a native speaker, yeah, no, you're wrong, I'm right. No, they know more than I do. You see, so you need to know when people know more than you do. And that doesn't mean that when people know more than you do, they're never going to be wrong. No, but it does mean that when they're showing you why they don't believe they're wrong, you should at least consider it. You see? And it's also a problem for you as, you know, the person kind of receiving the negative feedback, because then you're never going to accept that you might have said something that is not the best, you know, thing to say, that didn't sound as good as you thought it would. Yeah, and these situations will happen forever. So from a perfectionist, what I can say is learn to let go just a bit, because you're always going to be surprised with things that you didn't know, and you're going to be learning if you want to keep learning, that is, obviously. And it can be a very fantastic journey, you know. So remember, arrogance is worse than perfectionism, and perfectionism is not that great in itself. So I hope it's helped you. Let me know in the comments if you feel like you are a perfectionist, or if you feel that being arrogant has gotten in the way of your own learning. See you next time. Thank you for watching. Bye.